club slides if you want.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Okay, let me do this. Okay, we'll get started at least with the club slides, and hopefully Jim Beardsley will join us and be able to continue his. Our main topic today is going to be Better Smartphone Photography by Jim Beardsley. Oh, let me minimize that. Sorry about that. I wasn't sure. Sometimes I'm not sure whose pop-up it is that's showing, so I didn't think it was mine, but it must have been there. Okay, so let's take a look. First, we'll cover some club agenda items. Our next meeting is going to be July 15th, and that'll probably be a web only because of everything going on. Our main topic then will be security and passwords by Tom Kreitzer, myself, and we'll talk about why you need a password manager and some other tips and tools to keep you safe at home there. But the main emphasis is going to be on password managers and how they work and that you should use it. We do have a MaxSig coming up June 26th, next Friday, a week from Friday, and that'll be web only. So if you are interested in the Mac, if you have an iPhone or a tablet or a Macintosh, they're well worth listening into. Contact Mike Griffin to get on his mailing list and get the agenda and everything there. A couple of other items I had sent out in an email. The board is considering a virtual club picnic this year since we can't get together. We've discussed the possibility of prizes, sharing what we're eating, doing some things there. If you have any ideas or would like to take part, if you could contact myself or any of the board members with your ideas, it'd be great. But at this point, we haven't finalized anything, and we're not sure what it would look like or what it would do. But if you have some ideas, we'd love to hear them. Also, the August PCC club meeting, the topic we've set is going to be best interesting phone and tablet software. And if you have some new or unusual software that you use that you really like, contact myself and I'll add it into the presentation and we'll make sure we cover some of these things. Okay, our officers, Jim Holman is our president, Linda Brown is the vice president, Paul Ebert is our membership secretary, Mike Griffin is our treasurer and MaxSig, Chuck Scott is the secretary, Andrew Petrucci is our communication coordinator, and my name is Tom Kreitzer, I'm a director at large. We still are looking for somebody when we can get back together and do have a room to have some of our food events. We usually have our April sandwich meeting, our picnic, and then our November pizza. And so if you can help with that or organize some of that when we do get back together, we'd love to have you kind of join the board, PCC board, and help with that. And it's really just coordinating. We do have a number of people that do help with these various meetings, so it's not a whole lot of work there. It's just being the coordinator there. Members old and new, you can pay your dues to Paul, and since we aren't physically meeting in a building, the best way to get him it is to send it to his mail, through the mail there, and he sends out notices by email, and that has his address, so you can send it in there or pay online, whatever you want there. Also a reminder, if you are using your 3M email for the PCC club, you might consider changing it to use your home email because with some people furloughed or on vacation, they aren't checking their work email, and since we are having additional meetings and additional information, it would be beneficial maybe to use your home email instead of your 3M email. So it's whatever you want there. Suggestions for topics, you can email your ideas, talk to any of the board members. We're always looking to volunteers to present. In the last board meeting, one of the board members suggested a possible future topic would be devices that you connect to your smartphone. And so if you have any device that you are currently connecting, could be card readers, flash drives, special cables, archiving photographs, oscilloscopes, anything like that, we'd love to have you present at a future meeting. Or if you don't want to present, even writing a paragraph or two or a short article for our e-bites would be great there. So again, contact any of the board members if you do have an interest there. The website, we do have our past meetings and slides, and so as soon as this is done, we'll get that information out there, and we try and record the meetings, so that's usually out there too. We have our deals section, and this is where it's listed there. Any club questions before we get to the main topic? If not, hopefully Jim is back in here, and we can let Jim share his screen and take over here. Let's see. I'll stop presenting there. Jim Beardsley, are you online now?
I'm here.
Okay. I'll mute myself, and you can share your screen, or Jim should have given you permission to share there.
Is it up? Can you see it?
I don't see it, no.
Not seen it yet, anyway.
It's I usually share the entire desktop, but you can share it individually by an application. It's that share that if you move your mouse around at the bottom of the screen right next to the microphone, you'll see a button there for sharing.
I just hit that and nothing's happened.
It should pop up a screen right underneath there that lets you
Yeah.
pick what you have. Desktop, like I say, I usually do desktop there.
I'm hitting it and nothing's happened, Tom. Okay, well, hang on a second. Hang on, I just got something pop up.
Sure. There we go. Looks like we're
Yep,
getting
now we're getting it.
Good. I just wish it would show up on mine.
So right now we're seeing your team's screen. So if you
Yeah, I asked to share the whole thing.
and it's showing that Jim left and rejoined again.
Yeah, it's kicking me out. I don't know why.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got your old presentation, Jim, or we can do that, or if you can send me the new presentation.
Now it's coming better.
No, well, we're starting to see your screen anyway.
Is it up?
Are you attempting to send a link there, or?
No, I've got my PowerPoint up, and I said select the whole desktop,
Okay.
and nothing's coming up.
Well, right now we're seeing your PowerPoint. It's not in slideshow yet.
No,
Oh, just disappeared again.
yeah, I said it comes me out and says share. All right, share.
We had it.
Let's try this
Jim
again.
White, maybe turn off your video. That may help Jim Beardsley. He may be having trouble with network speed. And so if anyone's got their video on, they can turn off their video, because the only person that has to share or do anything should be Jim Beardsley.
Okay, now do you see it?
Yep, looks
Yep.
good. You should just have to. Yep, that's good.
Okay, but now I can't see it. That's the weird part.
Well, if you've got your teams in front of you, do you minimize your team window?
Well, I opened it up through the app, through the web app.
Because you can minimize your team window, and your team windows are so chances are it's showing what's behind it, because it doesn't usually show what's showing in your team window to the rest of us.
Do you see that? See it now?
Now we aren't seeing. We lost your screen.
This is it. All right, let's try this. And one more thing here. Now do you see it?
We have to give it a second here. Yep, now we see it there. Do you see it?
Yeah.
Okay, now if you go into your slideshow, it should work.
Yeah, I'm just going to bypass. How about now?
Now it's full screen, and we're at the agenda.
Yeah, so I'm scrolling through till I get to my part.
Okay. There we go.
Got it? Okay.
Yep. I'm going to mute myself. If anyone has questions, put them in the chat, and we'll try and relay them to Jim there.
All right. Well, good morning still. I'm going to talk a little bit about tips for better photography. First thing is going to be general. All tips apply to all cameras, smartphone, point and shoot, or DSLRs. First thing is on the point and shoot and DSLRs, be sure you read the manual. The recommendation is 1 to 2 pages per day with your camera in hand, so you get to know all the button functions and what your camera can do. It's better to do that before you need it than to get into a situation and you find yourself not able to make the camera do what you want it to do. And then once you've gone through the manual with the camera, experiment with each function, such as on the point and shoots, the scene modes, even on some DSLRs, the scene modes, the PASM, which are the functions that are on generally point and shoot and DSLRs. Gives you the different modes. It tells the camera what you want it to focus on. Look at other photographers' work. Tons of good photographers on Google, PX500. A number of different places you can go. Even on Instagram, to get an Instagram account and check out some of the photographers that specialize in the area that you like. Before you do anything else, make sure you clean your lens, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And use stability devices, a tripod, a monopod, different grips that can make, particularly with smartphones, they can make photography a lot easier. And again, simplify. Figure out what is your subject, and then so ask yourself that: what is my true subject? Having judged some photo contests, I've seen a number of cases where the photographer knew what the subject was. Well, somebody like myself looking at a print, you might have one or two or even three. So reduce the elements in your picture to as few as you can. Zoom in, get closer. And then ask yourself, does this element add or subtract from the story? If you don't think the element adds anything to the story, then subtract it. Get closer, use your telephoto lens, get rid of it. Things to look for in a photograph are leading lines. Think of things like a picket fence that leads your lines, or a path, or a roadway, a bridge, something that leads your eye to is either the subject or leads you to the subject. Look for an S-curve. That's exactly what you think about. The road or the path or in the form of an S. Odd numbers. 2 of something isn't very good. 3 of something's better. Think always in odd numbers. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. But when you get up to 7 and 9, you're beginning to probably get a really cluttered picture. And look at the scene carefully and look for triangles. Triangles happen very often when you do portraits. So again, look at some of the great portrait photographers, or on Instagram, look through the portrait photographers. And one that there's a controversy over, if there's anything that photographers argue about, it's portraits and what you should use as a lens. Most of the people that I'm familiar with don't like to use 50mm lenses for portraits because they tend to make everything larger. So it actually adds weight to the person's face. So if you're doing a portrait, you really want to condense that and make them look the best they can. And typically something like 85mm, 105mm in that area are the best portrait lenses. And you can make some of the smartphones do that with external apps other than the one generic to your camera. And of course, practice, practice, practice. If you're going to shoot a baseball game or football game or sports or whatever, try to get some practice in. Watch a little league team or whatever, So again, practice, practice, practice. If you're shooting nature, go to a place that you know, practice, 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 using the different functions of your camera. Excuse my voice, but I've got a sinus infection. That's really make my voice sound crazy. All right, the most important tip of all is clean your lenses.
Jim?
Yeah.
There was a quick question. Do you mean greater than or less than 50mm when you're saying that? And
I mean, don't use a 50mm. Use something larger than that.
Yeah, something with a longer focal length.
Right.
So it's something with a greater than 50 millimeter.
Yeah. So that's why I said 85, 100, 105, something like that are great portrait lenses. One of the favorite portrait lenses for most of the photographers that I know are the 70 to 200 f4 or f2.8, and they're expensive, but they do a great job. All right, so clean your lens. Consider where your phone camera's been: in your pocket, in your purse, in your computer bag. You know, get dust, lint, fingerprints. So clean the lens before you go out to take pictures. And that, of course, his tools are things like microfiber cloth. 3M sells them; those that work great. Lens cleaning wipes, if you want to go that way. And they have things called lens pens that you can use. You carry them in your shirt pocket just like a pen, and you pull the cap off and clean the lens. Use proper technique. Think of the phone as a camera, not as a camera, as a phone. You'll often see people taking a picture with their smartphone, and they're holding the camera with their two hands, but their hands are extended out so they can see the screen. You're better off pulling your hands in to your ribs and using your elbows to steady the camera. You can also use grips. They grip onto your smartphone and give you the feel of a regular camera. You can use a tripod and a phone holder. I've done that when I've done panoramas, multiple exposures. Or if your camera has panorama, that lets you keep the camera level and you get a nice, steady, good panorama. You can also use remote activators. I know on the iPhones, you can use the earplugs and then use the on-off switch to take your picture. But you can also get Bluetooth for either Android or iPhone, and they're relatively inexpensive, but they help steady the camera. And when you're, what is this? Now, I have an app that I was going to try, but I don't think it'll work. Anyway, when you hold your camera steady, tap and hold the focus square. So the camera should come up, should be a little square. Tap it and hold it, and that will lock the exposure and the focus. You can then zoom in with 2 fingers just to see if you've got good focus, and then zoom back out. And you don't want to use zoom for closer shots because it's digitally enhanced and brings in a lot of noise and grain. Use your telephoto mode. Use a telephoto adapter on the smartphone, or just get closer. Okay, expose properly. Use exposure controls on phone or app. On the Android app, besides the native, I recommend Open Camera or Pro Capture Free. On an iPhone, I go with Pro Camera or Camera Plus 2. In bright sunlight, you might want to use a diffuser. They're like $15, $10, $15. You pop them open and hold them between say it's photographing a flower. You hold it over the flower with the sun through the sun angle, and it helps put the whole camera and color in a nice even space rather than having bright spots from direct exposure to the sun. And use an external light, not a camera flash. The camera flashes are really bright. There's no control of them. But I found this selfie ring. It's a rechargeable battery, and you can put it on your camera, and you can adjust it 3 steps of light. It can use as a fill light. You can turn it on yourself as a selfie light, because that's really what it is, but you can turn it the other way and use it as a fill light. And one thing that I've used it for is I put it on my camera, when I use my camera to scan a document, because typically I end up with a little dark space. So with the camera light, you get a nice bright white light that gives you a uniform image. That's the link to Amazon. Okay, you want to fill the frame, and that means get in close. Most of your cameras will let you turn on a grid called the rule of third. The comment is dead center is deadly. So you want to use the rule of thirds of the Fibonacci curve. Most cameras have rule of thirds. Very few have the Fibonacci curve. And when you're taking a picture, something particularly moving to the right or the left, leave them somewhere to go. So you don't want to be around the edge. Leave room on the edges. Border Patrol is looking at the edges to see if there's something intruding in the picture that doesn't lead you directly to the excuse me, place you want to be in focus, the subject, and leave negative space. This is particularly true with things like birds, animals. You want to give them some place to go, some place to look at. Okay. Most pictures look best with a blurred background. It's called bokeh or bokeh. And one way to do this is to get in close, but also increase the subject's distance from the background. You can also do this in portrait mode if you've got a camera that has that, or telephoto mode if available. And if you don't have a telephoto, you can use accessory lenses. And they range from $15 for a set to over $100 for a glass set that are very, very, very good and very high resolution. Okay, well, one thing is most photographs coming out of any camera need some post-processing. And I use, there's some capability with your native camera on your smartphone, but I like to use something better. It's free and it's my preferred. It's called Snapseed, and it's available for Android and iOS. You can also transfer to a PC, where you can get a very cheap, not cheap, but very inexpensive photo editor called Smart Photo Editor from Anthropics. You can also use All-in-One, Luminar, Lightroom. There's several more expensive, but have a lot of different capabilities. But I like Snapseed. Now, I want to see if I can do this. Oops, that's a little bit. It's not going to work. Okay, so Snapseed's an app. I have a way to I was going to just demo it if we had a meeting indoors. But you open the app comes up, and all there is a circle with a plus sign in it. Click the circle and the plus sign. That allows you to go into your camera roll and select a photo. You tap on the photo, it opens in Snapseed. The bottom, there's three selections, I believe, and you hit Tools. When the photo comes up, you hit Tune Image, and you'll see a little three arrow symbol, and then you hit on that, and you can adjust brightness, color, intensity, contrast, a number of different things as wanted. And when you're done, you can click check mark when done. When you select the three arrows, you'll get a menu, and you may have to hit the menu of tune image again, and then you can adjust what you want. When you're done, hit the check mark, and then you can go back to tune image and adjust anything else you want, like if you want to crop the photo or other things that you want to do besides the basic. It comes with tune image. It's very specific. It's very well thought out. It's very easy to use. And if I'm somewhere where I don't have my laptop with me, I'll pop Snapseed up and do a lot of my images. Or if I know it's something that I want to modify the picture before I send it to somebody so they can look at it quick, I'll use Snapseed. Otherwise, I transfer to my hard drive and my external hard drive, and then to my PC. No, that was a little brief, but I would have liked to have been able to get to the Snapseed app a little bit better, but I can't doing it this way. So, any questions? No questions?
Well, there is from Jim White, just even, he says, I'm not sure I understand the symbols that are already on my smartphone. My smartphone has HDR at the top of the frame, and I don't understand that. So, well, I'll just let you reply to that. I won't interpret it.
HDR is it's like taking 2 or 3 images of a picture and having the camera blend them so you get more detail. And then once you get the HDR, you can adjust that a little bit. But you should have, what type of camera does he have?
Right now, he's just saying smartphone. So
Okay.
yeah, a lot of the latest phones do have the HDR. And Mitch is replying in the chat, but I'll let you reply again in the meeting too.
You should have a settings. Trying to find it online.
Yeah, this is Tom. Usually like on an Android phone or even on an iPhone, when you bring up your camera, you can get to the settings right from there, and that'll let you set the default for the quality of the picture and the size of the picture that you have. So you can set it to the HDR, but if you're doing burst mode, multiple shots, then it's not going to use HDR. It's going to, go down a little bit because it has to capture the photos faster. But this brings up the point that Jim was making earlier. My experience, almost 99% of the people who have, whether it's a smartphone camera or an SLR, do not read the manuals. You must read the manuals. Download the manual for your device. Go through the manual, like Jim said, even if it's just a handful of pages a day or that, you'll see all the features, you'll see how to turn them on and off. And then because there's no cost to take a picture, like Jim says, practice, practice, practice. Take lots of pictures, see what looks good, see what doesn't look good, see what this does, what does panorama do, what does portrait mode do, what does macro view do. You start seeing how these things work. Go ahead, Jim, if you want there.
Yeah, I for some reason I can't find the app I'm using doesn't allow me to have HDR. But anyway, you can many of the different camera apps will allow you to have things. There's even one called Pro HDR X for the iPhone. And again, that's one that I've used, and you can turn HDR on and off. It all depends on what app you're using in your camera. Any others?
Looks like John asks, I have a Samsung phone, Galaxy S10. When using it to take a photo, a best shot circle shows up to help get a decent photo. And that's
Go ahead.
And that's where some of the phones are showing you what it's focusing on and what it's taking its readings on. And Jim mentioned in his presentation, what you usually want to do is you want to control that yourself. So if you're taking a picture, understand what's going to be in focus and what the exposure is going to be on. So if something's in the sunlight and something's not in the sunlight, you make the decision of where you want the optimal exposure to be and where the focus should be.
On some cameras, when you aim the camera at a subject, a little square will come up. That's your focus. If you press and hold that, it will lock the focus, and you can see what's in focus by zooming out with your fingers and then zooming back in. That also works if you want to take a picture and you've got a very difficult lighting situation. You can click on that, and then on some cameras, on the right side of that little box, if you hold it, there'll be a little horizontal line with it like a sun, and you can adjust that back and forth, and that's adjusting the exposure. That's very basic. Now, there are others in other apps that have much more control over the exposure. You can simulate different f-stops, different light conditions, even some give you a little different speed. So they give you everything you need to control the picture. Just remember, it's not going to be as good a picture as using a point and shoot or a DSLR, whether it's a mirrorless or a regular DSLR. The better cameras are going to give you better focus and better pictures. But for the most part, you're not making your living doing it, so the picture will be okay.
And Mitch commented that with an iPhone, you tap the screen to set the focus and exposure. It'll pop up those dialogues that you're just talking about. And the same sort of thing depends on your phone and the app that you're actually using. So iPhones, it's a lot more common across all the devices, but as you get to Android phones, and you don't necessarily have to use the built-in camera app, so you might end up with different options. So it goes back to whatever you are using, read the manual so you understand it.
Or experiment. Just, the pictures are free. You take the picture. If you don't like it, you delete it. And remember what you did and go again, taking another one. Now, again, if you're using an Android, Open Camera and I think it's Pro Capture are two good free apps for giving you more control of your phone. Any others? No other questions?
I have a couple of things I can show if you want to stop sharing there, Jim, and then I'll maybe show a couple of things if people want to see some things there.
And also now a couple more things
I stopped sharing.
come in through the chat. So Jim Pritchard is asking, have you used any of the add-on lenses for iPhones? Do you have any recommendations? And maybe it would be for any of the phones, I guess. Have you used any of the add-on lenses?
No, I haven't. Mainly because if I'm usually out with one of my mirrorless or DSLRs, and I only use my phone when I see something that I want, something that I'm interested in when I don't have my camera with me, or my regular cameras.
Yeah.
And a separate, yeah, okay. I'll let you finish, Tom, first, because then there is another question in the chat that we'll get to.
Yeah, I was going to mention over the years, I picked up at garage sales and other sales, I picked up some lenses. And so you do see people that are get a new phone and get rid of their old lenses, and you can pick them up for a couple of bucks. So I picked up a couple. If you recall Jim's presentation, one of the comments in there is, yes, there are telephoto lenses in that you can put on a smartphone. The best telephoto lens is your 2 feet. Walk a little bit closer, get closer to it, because any of these lenses are some of them are cheaper plastic. The more expensive ones, like Jim mentioned, are glass. But even then, the lenses are so small that you get distortions in there. That it's only as a last resort that you plan on using something like that. Some of the add-on lenses are nice in that they're super wide angle, and if you don't have a wide angle on your smartphone, then it can be a little bit beneficial. But in general, the best lens you have is the lens on your camera. Move closer or move back to get in what you need, and that'll give you your best picture that way. These other ones, they are specific to different camera models because they clip onto the smartphone, and so they're different for all these different types of cameras too. So if you are going to buy a kit, be aware that get it for your particular smartphone model.
Yeah, as Tom said, there are, if you're looking for a really good snap-on lens, Moment.com sells one of the best, but they're in the 90 to, well, I haven't looked at the prices lately, but they're outside of the $50 range. They're higher than that, but they're all glass and they're very, very high quality.
And if you're going to the trouble where you think you might need a lens like that, my recommendation would be buy a point and shoot camera. You can get a $100 point and shoot camera, which is going to beat almost any smartphone camera, plus give you the capabilities of telephoto and wide, and probably on average almost twice as good a picture and that. So if you're taking a trip or things like that, the smartphones are handy and they do take good pictures, but they aren't great pictures. If you want great pictures, you're going to have to get a point and shoot, or even better than that is the SLR cameras there. And just consider an SLR camera, the size of the lens is so much bigger than what you have on your smartphone, which is a fraction of an inch. And so the ability to capture light and to not distort it and things like that is much easier on a bigger lens. That's why if you could do everything with a small lens, we'd have observatories that wouldn't have to be huge mirrors and huge observatories. One thing I was going to show is this is an example of a small tripod. And I think in the past when I've talked about photos and stuff like that, I've talked about tripods and that. And you used to be able to find even the tripods at the dollar store. they're well worth having because you do want that stability. And if you're going to take group shots of people, you can mount your phone on a small tripod like this. But when you mount your phone on a tripod like this, there's some holders that are friction based. So this just pulls up and down, and they aren't the best there. What I found to be the best is this is an example of a cell phone holder, and it has the screw in that'll go into any tripod, and then I can get any angle that I want, but it fits virtually any size smartphone, and I control the tension with a screw up here. So it's, and I think I paid $3 for this ordering it from China. And so you can get stuff like that. The other thing that I have to go along with it is I have a little push button, and Jim mentioned the Bluetooth for taking pictures or stuff like that. This is a little Bluetooth button here. I think this cost $1.50 or something like that. I ordered like 10 of them and gave them to my family and friends. And once you pair it with your phone, you can just push this to click the shutter. So if you're taking group pictures, attach it to the camera, set it back, and you can snap, snap, snap pictures there remotely. And like Jim mentioned, a lot of the Bluetooth headphones and earphones that you have now can also act as a shutter. You may have to go into the settings for that Bluetooth device and say, whenever I push the volume or hold down the volume, it does a shutter there, but you can turn those on also. Any other questions for Jim or that? Let's see.
Yeah, in the chat. So as Mitch points out, you can download the presentation from the club's website. That'll be available soon. But the question was, what were the two apps for Android again?
Just a second.
I'll put in my 2 cents. Most of you who know me over the years, I've used Picasa, which is no longer supported and no longer being updated. But I still use Picasa. I'll download my photos to Picasa, make my changes, and then actually to share them, then I upload them to Google Photos there. So there's all kinds of ways. It depends on how sophisticated you want to get with editing and that. But because the screen is so small on a smartphone, doing editing on a smartphone, it's usually better on a laptop or a PC with a larger screen there, where you can truly do stuff. And when I do my editing, it's not just the pictures themselves. I add tags, I add titles, I add all kinds of other metadata to the photos themselves, so that now I've got more of a complete record there.
Okay, the two apps for Android, Open Camera and Pro Capture Free. And for iPhones, it's Pro Camera and Camera Plus 2.
So I put those in the chat. They'll be available on the recording as well. But so for Android, it was Open Camera and Pro Camera Free. For iPhones, it's Pro Camera and Camera Plus 2. I did that as a Roman numeral 2, but however it's listed, you'll find it.
Regular 2.
Okay. Actually, I get to edit that. I forgot.
Another thing I'll maybe mention is Jim had talked about composition. And the rule of thirds is the very standard there of how to where you put the main subject, and if you're taking landscape, how things are. And you can Google the rule of thirds, and you can see excellent examples there. Almost every phone now you can turn on. If you go into the settings for your camera, you can turn on a grid, which is a third of the screen this way and a third of the screen that way. And you can turn that on so that when you're starting to learn photography, you'll see on your phone, it'll show you that grid and you can line things up. So don't always put things in the center, put them off to the side, have some things nearer to you and further away from you, and you'll find that the composition of the photo looks more pleasing and looks a lot more professional than just well, I'm going to take it from the height that I'm at and I get it directly centered there. So like Jim said, look around at pictures and just look at what photos do you like, and you'll start seeing these things and how you can compose your own photos, whether they're photos of people or they're photos of buildings, flowers, landscape, and things like that.
One thing I want to mention, if you're looking for online photography, Kelby1, Kelby, KELBYONE.com has a really good smartphone photography tutorial, and I think it may be out there for free, even though I think they give you a trial for 5 days or something like that. And the person who it's Calibra, KALEBRA, Kelby, is the person who did the class, and she does a very, very good job of photography with her smartphone. Her husband is a professional photographer. She's kind of become a professional smartphone photographer. She does a very good job on teaching the basics of smartphone photography. Anything else?
Thank you. No, nothing else coming in. Thank you, Jim, for your presentation. It's kind of hard to do the applause over the over a Teams meeting, but
That's okay.
yeah, Tom's got it. But our
Sorry
thanks
for the
to you.
technical difficulties.
Nope, everything worked out there, and
Yeah.
I'll get the video of this and your slides. Jim, if you could just send me your updated slides, I'll post it out to the club site this afternoon then.
Yep, I will do that.
Otherwise, thank you, Jim. Thank you, Jim Holman and Jim Beardsley.
Thank you all.
Thanks all.
Yep.
Right.
Bye.
Bye-bye.